guys, it's Libby and I am filming my January wrap-up on the last day of January, so very on top of things. I read 10 things this month across a variety of genres. January seems to be a good reading month for me. I feel like it's a good reading month for many people. Is it because like the Goodreads thing resets and you're like, gotta go? Anyway, I read 1 picture book, 1 collection of comics, 4 plays, 1 short story, and 3 novels. So let's talk about those. The first thing I read was the picture book. Let's start off the year with something you can get through in 10 minutes, and it is The Only Child by Guo Jing. This is a wordless picture book that I received for Christmas. It's kind of a fantastical version of an experience that the author had when she was like 6 years old. She fell asleep on the bus and got off at the wrong stop and then sort of got lost in the streets. But in this one, she like ends up in a sort of cloud city and there is a very nice stag. It was just a really, like, it wasn't like super cute because it's about like a lost kid and like her parents are panicking. But the art is so adorable. And just, she's so cute. I gave this 4 to 5 stars. The next thing I read was also a recent gift. It is Hark, a Vagrant by Kate Beaton. This is a collection of Kate Beaton's comics from her website, Hark, a Vagrant. So, you know, you can technically read all these for free, or you can give Kate Beaton money. And her comics are mainly satirical portrayals of literary or historical events. I will share my favorite one with you. I majored in French and Francophone studies with a concentration in the 17th and 18th century, so it will not surprise you that this one is about the French Revolution. It's titled, I'm Sure You Understand, and you have George Washington says, Monsieur, we do appreciate the help France gave America, so now help us, but our finances are tight and we, Mr. President, surely there must be something you can do. It's just, we think your revolution is super creepy. The French Revolution was super creepy. I didn't quite get all of these, and a number of them are sort of like tiny inward chuckle, and then some of them are like laugh out loud. So I gave this a 4 to 5, and it also sent me on a Shakespeare binge, because sometimes Kate Beaton talks about Shakespeare. The first one that I read was Measure for Measure, which is my favorite Shakespeare play of all time. It inspired me to make like a flash video and put it up. So if you want all my thoughts on this, or at least some of my thoughts on this, I have so many thoughts on this, go watch that video. Oh my god, this play, I love it so much. Then from Measure for Measure, I went to All's Well That Ends Well, and I can't believe I had never noticed this before, but like All's Well That Ends Well is kind of the same story as Measure for Measure, but where one of the side characters is a main character. So like Measure for Measure, the bad guy has abandoned his fiance and is now trying to sleep with this other woman who doesn't want to sleep with him. And then in All's Well That Ends Well, it's about a woman who is abandoned by her fiance and then he tries to have sex with somebody else. And then in both of them, they like trick the guy into having sex with her instead. Unfortunately, All's Well That Ends Well is like a far worse play than Measure for Measure. It's a lot of it does not make sense. If you're like into Shakespeare, read it. But 3 out of 5. Then I picked up Hamlet. This is a little play that you may have heard of. And it's kind of also tied to All's Well That Ends Well thematically. In the beginning, Helena is in mourning for her father, and just as Hamlet is in mourning for his father in this one, and they have sort of similar lines. So you don't need me to tell you what Hamlet's about. You've seen The Lion King. But I will point out 2 of my favorite parts that I think are overlooked. One of them is a monologue that Hamlet has, and one of them is a soliloquy that Hamlet has. Hamlet does a lot of talking in this play. If you don't know, a monologue is said, is delivered to another character on stage, and a soliloquy is done when the character is alone on stage and they are talking to the audience, expressing their internal thoughts. So the monologue is in Act 3, Scene 2, and Hamlet says it to Horatio, and like it doesn't really have to do with the plot, and Hamlet kind of admits this. He's like, hey, y'all, give me a second. I just want to say, Horatio, that you're a really good friend, and I really appreciate that. And like, it's Shakespeare, so it's really beautiful. You should go read that. And then my other favorite passage, it's in Act 3, Scene 8, and it doesn't really have anything to do with the plot either, but this is the soliloquy that I think really captures Hamlet's internal dilemma much better than the more famous to be or not to be speech. But in this, Hamlet, I'm just gonna read it to you. Okay, so strap in. How all occasions do inform against me and spur my dull revenge. What is a man if the chief good and market of his time be but to sleep and feed, a beast no more? Sure he that made us with such large discourse, looking before and after, gave us not that capability and godlike reason to fasten us unused. Now, whether it be bestial oblivion, or some craven scruple of thinking too precisely on the event, a thought which quartered hath but one part wisdom, and ever 3 parts coward, I do not know why yet I live to say this things to do. Sith I have cause and will and strength and means to do it, examples gross as earth exhort me. Witness this army of such mass and charge, led by a delicate and tender prince, whose spirit with divine ambition puffed, makes mouths at the invisible event, exposing what is mortal and unsure to all that fortune, death, and danger dare, even for an eggshell. Rightly to be great is not to stir without great argument, but greatly to find quarrel in a straw when honor's at the stake. How stand I then, that have a father killed, a mother stained, excitements of my reason and my blood, and let all sleep, while to my shame I see the imminent death of 20,000 men that for a fancy and trick of fame go to their graves like beds, fight for a plot whereon the numbers cannot try the cause, which is not tomb enough and continent to hide the slain. Oh, from this time forth, my thoughts be bloody, or be nothing worth. That's Hamlet right there, folks. You don't need to read the rest of it. That part's so good. Anyway, then I read Twelfth Night. This is one of Shakespeare's comedies. It has all of the hallmarks of a Shakespearean comedy. You got twins who get mistaken for each other. You've got a woman disguised as a man. You've got a love triangle, a square rhombus with like an tetrahedron. No, it's a rhombus with a bit sticking off. It's like a kite with a string. Malvolio, you're the string. So this play could be like not great, but good if you cut out like at least a third of it. So that's what I do when I read this. This play is about a woman named Viola. She has a brother named Sebastian, and we start the play, we get introduced to Viola when she has been shipwrecked and believes that her brother has drowned. And she's in a foreign land, she doesn't really know what to do, so she decides to disguise herself as a boy and go become a servant to the Duke of the local Duke, whose name is Orsino. He asks her to go try to convince this local countess named Olivia to marry him. Viola does this even though she is in love with Orsino herself, and then, surprise, Olivia ends up falling in love with Viola. And then like her twin brother wasn't actually dead, so there's all this craziness. And then the part that's boring is that there's this like really stiff butler sort of person in Olivia's household, and so Olivia's uncle and like her maid and this other guy who's trying to marry her like convince Malvolio, the butler, that Olivia is in love with him, and then like they get him to make a fool of himself in front of her, and then he loses his job. Yeah, that part sucks. Don't read that part. Like even the part that is the good part still has some problems with it. Like we don't see Viola fall in love with Orsino. Like we see her say, you know, I'm gonna disguise myself as a boy and then go work for him. And then like the next scene, someone says like, oh, you've been here for 3 days. And it's like 3 days later. And then at the end of that scene, she has a speech like, I'm in love with him, by the way. I'm like, well, that didn't take very long. So what is this play? It is a crazy play. There's bits of it that I really like, though. The speeches. You should probably read this one. It's important, like, culture. The next thing that I read was finally Siege and Storm. I did the math, and I think I've been reading this for 389 days, but I think it's actually longer than that because on Goodreads, I listed this on my currently reading as like starting it on December 27th of 2015. I did not like this one so much. So the beginning was good. The beginning was good. Like, it was not great, but it was good. Then there was 200 pages of I hate this. Then there was, then the end went back to being good. With like the merest flashes of amazing sprinkled throughout. Mainly it's the love triangle situation. So I'm aware that YA love triangles, particularly YA fantasy love triangles, are a thing. And they are largely hated at this point, I believe. And believe it or not, I actually had not really read any YA before joining BookTube. I did not read YA when I was in the target age range. And so I've read a bunch of Thomas Hardy, and I'm a big fan of him. And if you don't know this, Thomas Hardy is like all love triangles. So I was like, why is everyone hating on the love triangles? I like it. And then I read this, and I understand. Like, wow, I just hated everybody involved. Even characters that I liked before. Now when you're having this, I'm just like, oh God, shut up. It doesn't help that like not really anything important is going on outside of the love triangle. Like it's a traveling. There's like 150 pages of love triangle and traveling on a road and sometimes stopping on the road and then like kissing and punching people in the face. And also, like, it was so very unnecessary because you've got Alina and Mal, who is like clearly her true love, and like their relationship already has enough problems in that like she is a powerful magical being and like he is a normal dude, and she's like, I gotta like save the country with my magic and alliances and stuff, and he's like, wish I could help. I can catch you a rabbit. I feel like you're kind of moving away from me. And like that, explore that. Don't throw another dude. You don't need to have a person symbolize the problem with their relationship. You can just have the problem with their relationship. Yes? Okay. Anyway, I got through it. Then I read a short story called Microbiota and the Masses by S.B. Divya. This is a Tor.com short story, and it was not on my radar at all, except that I get like the Tor newsletter thing, where they tell you all the articles that they've listed and their new short fiction that month. But I've been subscribed for a couple of months, and I sometimes read the articles, but I've never read the short story before. But this time, I think it was mainly the title. Like, I don't know what it is, but that title is very attractive to me. So I was like, yeah, I'll read this, and it was pretty good. I gave it, I think, 4 stars. It's about a character, what's her name? Moena? She lives in a slightly futuristic 15-20 year futuristic Bangalore, India, and she has some sort of immunodeficiency, I think, that makes it so that she has to like live in like a sealed bubble, and it's not incredibly sterile. She's just very selective in what microorganisms are sharing it with her, because like some of them she needs, so like she has dirt and she like licks the dirt sometimes, but it's still all sealed off from all of the stuff on the outside. And then this like window repairman comes, and she totally falls in lust with the window repairman, and she like starts venturing outside so that she can hang out with him. And the main way she's able to do this is that he is running tests on the river that flows through the city, seeing if various like water treatment things are working. So she works collecting samples from the river, and the river is gross and like it's making her incredibly sick. But she keeps doing this like for love of this guy, but then it also sort of turns out that she's doing this like for love of the people, and she wants them to have a cleaner city, and it was nice. I enjoyed it. Then came Diversithon, and I basically only read one book. It is The Ghost Bride by Yangji Chu. I have enough to say about this, but I want to give it its own review. But I will say it's about, it's set in the late 19th century in Malaysia. It's about a Chinese girl who, her sort of rich neighbors are trying to get her to have a ghost marriage with their dead son. And she doesn't want to, because he's kind of gross and creepy in that he is like sneaking into her dreams. I didn't love it as much as I wanted to. I gave it 3 stars. I think like there are many things that are interesting. Sort of macroscopically, it's good, but this is Yang Ji-chu's first novel, and I wasn't quite able to get on board with some of the leaps of emotion and intuition that the main character experiences. You'll find out more about this later. And then the last book that I finished, like literally right before I started filming this, was Ruin and Rising by Leigh Bardugo, last book in the Grisha trilogy. It took me over a year to get through Siege and Storm. I got through this in 2 sittings, so it was better than Siege and Storm. Obviously, since this is the final book in a trilogy, I can't talk that much about it, and I don't know if I want to film a review of this. I feel like since I'm so late to this bandwagon, everyone either has read it or has decided that they don't want to read it. So does anyone like care what I think about this? I don't know, let me know. But basically, I did like this. The end didn't make sense. And I don't mean like the whole end, like all of the sort of emotional character-based issues like get resolved in a very satisfying way that hits you right in the feels. But like the actual resolution of the plot, what was that? That didn't make any sense. And that's all I'm gonna say. I gave it 4 stars. Thank you for watching, guys. I will see you again soon.